The first one, he said, was have a vision. The only vision I had when I got out of Siena College was to get a job that took me traveling. And I ended up doing that for the next 40 years. One of the things I found out early is when you go into a new job, any job, do it. Do it better than it's been done before. Do it that you get so much attention about what you're doing, they might want to get rid of you. But promotions will come. People will come looking for you. Now that's what happened to me with all these jobs they listed. I put in 40 years in government and business, and I never went looking for a job. They always came looking for me because of what I had done, what I was doing, and what was happening. I think what you'll find out wherever you go is the world is changing so fast in terms of the technology, in terms of the businesses that are disappearing and coming up from out of nowhere, in terms of globalization, which is changing everything you thought you knew about business. So they're looking for people who are problem solvers, who are willing to get in and tackle a problem sometimes without only half a knowledge of what it really is happening. The first job I had when I left college, I said I didn't know what I wanted to do. I wanted to travel. I looked at the bulletin board. Bulletin boards are pretty good. And there was an exam being given by the State Department for a management intern. So I signed up. I killed the exam. They offered me a job in Washington at the State Department. I took my 10-year-old Chevy and put everything I could into the trunk that I had, which wasn't much, borrowed $500 from a beneficial loan company, and went down to Washington. I went looking for the State Department. I found it, because I had a map of Washington, and then I drove up the street to look for a hotel. I walked into a hotel that's no longer there. There was a line of people waiting to register. I finally got registered, and I went out, and my car was gone. It was gone with everything I owned in it, including the $500 I had borrowed. So I walked back into the hotel. I said, my car was gone. He said, where did you park? Well, that's no parking zone after 4 o'clock. It's 4:07. I said, they're fishing here in Washington? So I said, what do I do about my car? He says, call the police department. Here's the number. I called them. They told me the car is being towed to a place up in northern Washington. I took a cab up there, and a cop at the gate, the big lot. I said, I'm looking for my car. He looked at his list. There's no such car here. As I turned around, there came my car on the back of a truck into the lot. I paid $75 to get it out. I drove back down to Washington to the YMCA and got a room trying to figure out what happens next. Luckily, it was a Friday. I went down to Sears Roebuck and opened up a charge account and bought 2 suits, 4 shirts, a number of socks, and some ties, because I didn't have any suits. I had 1 sports coat. That's what 4 years of college will do to you, make you broke. For your parents, anyway. Well, at any rate, I went in there, and they put me on an assignment, which I would rotate every 3 months to a different job. I did so well in the first job that they didn't want to let me go. I said, but part of the deal is I get to move around. They said, at the end of the 1 year, you get a promotion. We'll give you a promotion in 6 months if you stay here. I said, it's a deal. So I stayed there, got the promotion. But one of the things I found out, they put me on the State Department budget. They were putting together the budget. I took accounting here in Siena, but it was business accounting, cost accounting. I knew nothing about authorizations and appropriations, and the House Budget Committee and the Senate Budget Committee and the House Defense Committee, State Department Budget Committee. So I had to learn this all over again, so I walked up the street to George Washington University and signed up for a course on government budget. So here I was, 3 weeks out of college, and I was taking college courses again at night. One lesson learned there is you think you may know it all, but you don't. Secondly, you may have to get continuing education as you go through college. Well, the second thing I found out as I was getting these assignments was to volunteer. I guess you heard the old phrase, never volunteer for anything. I volunteered for everything. New assignments, task forces, all sorts of jobs. I came home. By the time when I was there, those 2 years, by the way, I found a young lady. Interesting story about that one. She's sitting here 40 years later, still wondering what happened. I said to her, I took an overseas assignment. She said, great, where are we going? I said, Vietnam. Now, this was before all the shooting started, and she said, where's Vietnam? So we went to Vietnam. She signed up to be a teacher there. I took assignments that took me all over the country. Soon, President Lyndon Johnson cleared the decks, sent all the defendants home or to Bangkok, and I stayed there with the rest of the guys. And I traveled throughout Vietnam. I was in charge of a refugee relief program with 12 contracts with Seventh-day Adventist, Catholic Relief, Jewish Relief, working on a refugee relief problem. I was in charge of building Hamlet schools. I was in charge of building Hamlet dispensaries. I was in charge of a group that was helping farmers. I was in charge of a group that was building roads. Lots of responsibility if you want to take it. In most organizations, both business and government, if you want to get over to the side, just take your pay, they'll give it to you, but you learn nothing, you give nothing. Take the assignments, take the responsibilities, leave the rest of them behind you. They don't want to do it, and you do it. Now, one thing about this is I kept getting offers of jobs elsewhere. I left Vietnam, and I was offered a job in the Office of Management and Budget that was mentioned. That's in the office of the President, the President's Office of Management and Budget. I was in charge of programs in 17 government agencies, and it was a heck of an assignment as I learned about how government works in all these various agencies. I got a call from a fellow who says, we're going to reorganize CIA, come on over. I said, what are you talking about? I took the assignment, I had to resign. I got selected to a job in CIA, which had a lot of internal reorganization, a lot of projects going on. I dove into all of them. 3 years later, I got another call. Come on over to the Defense Department. There was a guy named Frank Carlucci who became Deputy Director and then later became National Security Advisor and later became Secretary of Defense. But I had worked for them in the Office of Management and Budget. They called me to come over to the Defense Department. Within a short time, I was the controller of the Defense Department. 4,000 people working for me, a budget of $300 billion, and I want you to know, in Siena, I only got C's in account. At that time, it was the largest budget in government. But I did the job. It was pretty fascinating. Out of it came a lot of travel with the Secretary of Defense or the Deputy Secretary of Defense. Every 3 months, we went all over Europe, all over Asia, to American military bases, to the Ministers of Defense in those countries. For instance, on one trip, we flew from Washington to Rome. In the morning, we went to the American Embassy for a meeting, and then to the Italian Minister of Defense for breakfast. Got back on a plane and went to Bonn, Germany, where I had a meeting with the American Embassy there, and then with the German Minister of Defense, lunch, and then we flew to Brussels, where we had a meeting with the American ambassadors, and then with the NATO ambassadors and supper. So I had breakfast in Rome, lunch in Germany, and supper in Brussels. And that evening we got on a plane and went to London, and stayed there for 3 or 4 days, where I saw the first version of Cats. You can have a little fun on the side, along with all the heavy stuff. I retired from the government. I can mention a lot of other assignments, but I traveled to Korea and Thailand and Laos with the government, and also to Europe on various assignments. I volunteered for every committee and every special problem. There were a lot of problems coming up because, again, the government was getting bigger, the problems were getting bigger, and they kept setting up task forces to attack these problems. I volunteered for all, and I learned a heck of a lot. I retired from the government on a Friday and went to work on a Monday. What a place, Sperry Rand, I think was the name of it. 2 days off. And I worked for them for 1 year, and they were attacked by another major firm, and they merged. And I was put on the task force to set up a merger between Sperry and this other organization. It became a new organization called Unisys. They put me on the planning committee, They asked me now to carry out your plan, which I think all planners ought to be sentenced to carry out their plan. Put a little realism in it. So I went to this other company. I said, I'll put in 1 year. However, that turned into 5 years. I might mention one other job I had in there with Sears World Trade. I came out of the federal government at Sears World Trade because a guy named Carlucci had become the chairman and chief executive officer. He asked me to come over and help. So I was at Sears World Trade for 3 years before I went to Sperry Rand. But I got tired of buying sneakers in Korea and window slats in Brazil. So I went to work for Sperry Rand for 5 years. I said, that's it. I gave them a 3 months notice. I told them in September I was leaving in December. The president of Nortel called a few days later and says, I understand you're leaving. I said, yes, I am. He says, go have lunch. So we went to have lunch. And he asked me to come to work for Nortel on January 1st. I said, that's only 1 day from the day I'm leaving. It'll be my 4th retirement. I said, I'll come over on June 1st. He said, February 1st. I said, May 1st. So we compromised on April 15th, and my wife and I went for 6 weeks to Italy. When they're after you, you can put all sorts of demands on. I spent in that organization, I told them I'll put 1 year in. I was there 4.5 years later, and I left. One day we got a call at home. Hank says, Colin Powell's on the phone. He had just been named by a new president, Bush, as Secretary of State. He asked me to come over to help him. He said, in fact, he said it to me, Vince, I need help. I said, what's the problem? He says, I'm being named as Secretary of State. Tomorrow I get my first briefing on the defense, on the State Department budget. And I know nothing about State Department budget. The Ex-Im Bank, the other IMF, the other international banks are also in there in the budget. So I said, I'll come over. I don't want any pay. I don't want any assignment. I'll work on your budget until January 21st, which was the day that the new government comes in. That's it. 3 years later, I was still there. I told him I don't want a title. I don't want an office. I don't want a secretary. Just give me a little desk in a corner. So for 3 or 4 days a week, I came in as a special foreign affairs advisor to the Secretary of State, which was pretty interesting for a little old Siena boy from South Troy. So I had a heck of a time through those years, and they went fast, and we had a lot of fun then, and still do. But I learned 2 or 3 things, not those 8 that Father has. I'm leaving, so it doesn't make any difference. The first job, any job you get, just do it. Do it so well that you get attention. Because every organization, be it government or business, have so many problems going on. They're looking for somebody, anybody, willing to dive in that problem and try and handle it and do it. You do that, you find all sorts of strange things happen. They give you promotions. Other people come looking for you in other organizations. That's the first rule. The second rule is be your own career advisor. As you go into all these organizations, they all have a human resources group, and they're all very good. They will try to get you to stay in that organization to their benefit if you're good. Well, every 3 to 5 years, just go out by yourself someplace and contemplate your navel. Think about what you're doing. Do you want to keep doing it? Do you like what you're doing? Would you rather be doing something else? And make a decision yourself. Change what you're doing. Go someplace else. You may not, you may like where you are working so well you want to stay there. Yeah, but you miss a lot of fun going into new areas and new places. One of the other things that you find out is as you're going through these different kinds of phases and jobs, people come looking for you. For 40 years, I never looked for a job. And I had all sorts of jobs. They came looking for me. Because evidently they consider me a problem solver, willing to try anything, willing to look for a solution, trying to do what was necessary. And they'll come looking for you, and they give you all sorts of offers, and then something else comes to work. You'll have to take some risks. You don't move from an organization where you're nice and comfortable, you're making a nice salary, everything is going fine, and somebody comes and offers you a job somewhere else, and you say, God, that organization's in problem. It's having problems. That organization, I don't know anything about that organization. I don't know anything about their product. I don't know anything about what they do. So have strength in your own convictions of what you can do through your experiences. Take some of those jobs. Go out there with the minimum of knowledge and try them and do them. Now, that's my 3 points. I don't have 8. I can think of 5 more, but they aren't worth it. Do the job. Be your own career person. Take some risks, and you'll do great for the next 40 years. My own congratulations to all of you who are the new inductees. You've already shown that you're willing to make some sacrifices and not settle for the C's and the B minuses. You want a little more for yourself. Well, keep on doing that for the rest of your career, wherever you go. It'll be all right. That's it.